You are now listening to an exclusive interview with the baddest man on the airwaves, Mr. Saturday Night.
Hello.
Felix.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so very much. It's Mike here. I want to say first and foremost, I just realized you're in Nashville. It's probably your dinner time. But thank you and welcome to the program as our celebrity guest star, legendary artist, organist, singer, songwriter, and we're out of time. Listen, I want to wish you a happy, first and foremost, a happy 60th anniversary.
Believe it or not.
You know
yes,
what?
Sir.
Yeah, it's monumental. The only other people we've had on the program a couple of weeks ago that have achieved that stature, I want to say, is Carl Giammarisi of the Buckinghams, also celebrating 60 years.
Wow.
You are truly on Mount Rushmore of music. And correct me if I'm wrong. I will shut up here. Correct me if I'm wrong. You just celebrated was it Feb 15th, the date of your first appearance?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct. That was many years ago. Yeah.
I want to cover a few of your OMG moments in your life. Let's start out with, let's go young here. Your mom wanted you to be a classical pianist, but you had other ideas. Take it from there.
Well, I don't know if I had the idea, but that's what happened, Yeah, I mean, I got started with classical music for many years of my life. And when I was in junior high, some guys asked me to join a band, and that band was more of like a wedding band. It was like a wedding, and things were just starting to happen with rock and roll. So I went to that, and then I found myself like doing Jerry Lee Lewis impersonations, and Fats Domino, all the piano players that I was now listening to. And the next thing I know, the band was getting known for that segment of the show. So then I went off to college, to Syracuse University, and I was actually in pre-med, and started a band up there. And then we got an offer, the group that I had, to work in the Catskill Mountains. And as I say, I'll make it real short because
that's fine. Was that the Hotel Raleigh? Does that sound right?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Go ahead. Sorry.
So while we were there, the headliner came in for one of the weekends, was Joey D and the Starlighters. So I actually met with the band, and they saw me and heard me, and evidently they thought it might be a good idea if I joined them. So when their organ player quit not too long after that, it was just time for me to either go to school, go back to college, or join them in Europe. They invited me to Europe. Okay, I get on an airplane, I go over to Frankfurt, Germany, I go into a nightclub, I'm working, and there's this band opening for them. And this tells you how long ago it was. It was called the Beatles.
Oh, God.
So I heard the Beatles firsthand, and, I don't know who they were. I just saw all this screaming and yelling and hollering, and I said, man, wow, this looks like a lot of fun, man. And, I felt, nothing like youth. I said, I could do that. So that's kind of how I got going.
So you weren't intimidated necessarily at first, and you've in later years referred to the Beatles as space aliens. What did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, first of all, to find a band that has three outstanding songwriters in it is almost impossible, And they had John, Paul, and George, who were phenomenal songwriters. That's unique. Usually a band has one member who writes, maybe sometimes two, but never three. And so they were unique. And my God, they took over the whole planet, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, in later years, you now hook up with Ringo on his tour.
Right.
That had to be pretty unique.
Well, yeah. We had a relationship with the Beatles from the start because the man who's to become our manager was the man who brought them to the United States for the first time and the second time to Shea Stadium and to the Ed Sullivan Show. That was Sid Bernstein. So we had sort of like a relationship throughout those years, as much as you can have with space aliens. It's not that easy. Yeah.
Another person that you've, God, the list of people you've either worked with or collaborated with or opened for, or they opened for you is endless. But there's another person that you felt was soft and gentle. Was that the case with Jimi Hendrix?
As a person, absolutely. Yeah, as a person, he was a doll, And as an entertainer, he put on a different kind of a front, which was like a wild man, but he was not. He was a very sweet man.
Let's go back for just a second. So, your whole life to that point was classical music. And then you hear rock and roll. Do you remember what that felt like the first time?
Sure do.
And do you remember what it was or how you felt?
Well, yeah. I remember that it was, the fact that Alan Freed brought what he called Moondog to New York City, to WINS, and that was New York. We were the first ones really to break out with the rock and roll. I heard everyone, and what you have to understand about those years is that there were no enhancements like you have today. Today it's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody can sing between AI and auto-tune, etc. The people who were the entertainers in those days were really good. They were excellent, because they didn't have any way to fix them up in the computer. They either sang well and played well, or they didn't record. So I heard these magnificent artists. The first one that really comes to mind was the fact that I was a keyboard player was Ray Charles. Here's a person playing the same instrument as I am, but nothing like I was doing it. Wow. So I was fascinated by, the Moonglows and the Temptations, although this was way before them, but like the groups and the singers that I heard, they were just magnificent, and it really made an impression on me. To this day, I still revere those people. I do.
Your first performance in New York, and maybe I'm confused here. I don't remember which one came first. Was it the Choo Choo Club or was it the Barge Club?
Well, the Barge was that's a good question. Actually, Choo Choo Club was first, and that was in New Jersey, and that's where we got invited to go to the Barge in Long Island, which was on Southampton. And so that was 1-2, yeah. But that's what made the difference, was when we went out there, the fact that all the record execs and many famous people go out there for the summer, that's where we got discovered.
And within 5 months, this had to be just an incredible whirlwind from going from classic music. You're young, and now you're in college, but you're not in college, and you're in Europe, and now you're in New York, and you're in clubs. And within 5 months of all of that, you are signed to Atlantic Records in the early days. And I know you have opinions about this, about how record labels have evolved, but they had to give you a lot of freedom back then, did they not?
Well, Atlantic was the only one that would allow me to produce the band. I really wanted us to produce ourselves. I did not want an outside producer. I just felt that, I had an idea. People seemed to like it. I'd like to try it. And, as I say, there's nothing like youth to think you can, climb over buildings very easily, And Atlantic was the only one that would allow us to do that. They just gave us the gift of putting two people in the room with us who were absolute geniuses. And that was Tom Dowd and Arif Mardin. So we got very lucky. There's a tremendous amount of luck involved in people's careers. There's a lot of people with talent out there. They may not be in the right place at the right time.
I was just going to say that. Right place, right time is half of it sometimes.
Definitely. Well, if you're not there, nothing can happen, right? Yeah.
The only other this story comes to mind that also had a label that let them sort of do their own thing. And by the way, you were very smart and correct for your vision of the music. The only other person I can think of that sort of had that freedom was Tommy James with Roulette Records, but of course they were taking all his money. They just said, have a good life. So anyway,
Tommy's a good friend, and actually I think he he took that position as a result of what we did. Because I remember working with him, and he said, "Look, I want to try this." So he did it. And, like he was, as you say, he was working for roulette, which was a tough thing. But,
sure.
One thing about Tom, I never heard him complain.
Yeah.
I never heard him complain.
Yeah. You do things or did things, continue to do things with the Hammond B3 that no one ever did before, right?
Well, I'm not sure that no one ever did it before, but...
not in your way.
Well, no. I mean, basically, I was kicking bass, which not too many rock groups were doing at that time. They had a bass player, which we didn't. But I mean, it was kind of unique in those days. But I really we never just found a guy that was the right guy or gal to play the bass with us. There had to be a certain insanity to join our band, so it never happened. Yeah.
65 to 72, keyboards and vocals with the Rascals racked up 3. This blows my mind. I mean, to think about the time, the competition, the people that you're sharing the charts with. You have three number one hits, 7 top 10 hits, and 20 top 40 hits. That is beyond amazing.
Yeah, and as you said, the competition was part of the reason, because I mean the competition was tough, and we really had a good time. I mean, let's put it like that. That was a blast. I'll never forget. I mean, the wonderful times. I mean, it's like all like like a lot of times groups don't end up of the way they started, which is unfortunate, but we had a good time. We really did. You
are a dang jukebox. And by the way, I may have paid a couple of your bills along the way. I saw you, God, I lost count, at least probably more than 5 times.
Wow.
And spun a whole lot of your records back in the late 60s, early 70s. So there's that. You're in New York. You're walking around with a transistor radio. I'm on the radio playing your hits. It was definitely a special time. Hits like Good Lovin', Groovin'. So that's grooving is just maybe hit number 1 on the charts, and you're in Hawaii with your beautiful girlfriend. Take it from there. What inspired you to write a song?
Well, that's correct. I mean, we were it was a very, very happy moment. And here we are on Oahu, and we had a number 1 record. And as you say, I was madly in love. So I wrote this song that I said, like every time people hear this, they're going to feel exactly how this feels. And that was Beautiful Morning. Yeah.
You have crafted literally some of the most enduring melodies in pop history. What's your songwriting process like? I mean, do you wake up and you have something in your head, or does something just kind of take a while to craft? How's it work?
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, there's a lot of different methods. I usually sat down on the piano and started fooling around, and something happened. But nowadays, we sit down on a computer. And we have different ways of kind of stimulating an idea because of the software that's available. I mean, you could actually have, at your fingertips, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which, inspires you sometimes to write a song. It's very different, but I start with the music first.
Okay. Well, you and I know you've mentioned this before, and God knows I've been in the studio and spent a whole lot of time editing with a razor blade, a grease pencil, and some scotch.
Oh, yeah.
And scotch tape. But you know what? It got the job done, right? As opposed to, I think you mentioned now, I mean, you're doing some stuff probably virtually and on the computer, and you can edit something in 2 seconds.
Well, it's a big difference, yeah. I mean, huge difference. And I mean, there's really no comparison. I mean, that's one of the things that, well, obviously has really changed the music business. You could change your mind constantly, which sometimes is not so good, because it might be the original idea. But you're absolutely right. In the old days, cut the tape, splice the tape, make sure it matched. If it didn't match, got to go back. It was a tedious process in those days, but it's the same with film, and it's just it's completely different. But I kind of like the new technology. I just feel that we may be going a little bit too far with the AI. That's all.
Yeah, totally agree. So it is a virtual, oh God, a who's who of all the people you've performed with. Is there another group you perform with that maybe you still have fond memories of? I'm sure it's all of them, but anyone
well, I
you
think,
can think of?
One of the fun group we played with was Sly and the Family Stone. They were so good. Yeah, you always remember, like, rocking like that. They were fun. But we go back with, like, oh my God, there's so many.
I know.
I mean, I did a show one time at Radio City Music Hall, which was really an honor. It was kind of CBS FM tribute to the 50s. And these were all the people that I was listening to, as I said, when I was growing up. I mean, the Flamingos, the Penguins, the Heartbeats. That was fun.
Oh.
That was fun because, they were phenomenal talent. Chuck Berry and, of course, as we go on later in years, the Temps, David Ruffin, Eddie Kendricks. I mean, these guys, they're phenomenal, man. And one of my dearest friends who we lost was Benny King. I loved working with Benny King, man. I only wish I had done an album with him.
And you're right. You know what? Back then, and listen, you can have a bad night. You're out on the road, like just constantly touring, but there's nowhere to hide. You either got the chops or you don't. You know what I mean?
That's it, man. That's it. You got it. You got it. And that's how it was. And now, of course, you got all these ways to fix. And of course, we have video now, so it really doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter how you look now, but it didn't in the old days. You just went up there and sang, But we used to say in the dressing, it's a good thing they don't have video, but...
You've certainly come a long way since, what was it, $60 a week at Raleigh Hotel, right?
Yeah, that's right. That was the beginning, yeah. But, I got the bug there, and I really wanted to continue.
Any crazy sort of unusual or different experiences or stories that come to mind from being a road warrior?
Oh, many. I mean, I mean, we have many. I mean, don't forget, we had, the name of the group was the Rascals, the Young Rascals, and boy, I'll tell you, we had some young rascals in that band. I mean, my ex-partner there, Eddie, he was a piece of work. I mean, seriously. Not too many people, and all the other guys. I mean, Dino, rest his soul. Dino was a strange guy. He was a great drummer, but he never really had much of a childhood because of his family. So he was a big kid for most of the time. I mean, he was out there buying comic books that he never could afford. Yeah, and instead of Rolls Royces and stuff like that, he had a collection of comic books and those buzzer toys that you put in your hand. Yeah, it was very interesting, growing up with these guys. We all come from different walks of life, and I look back with fond memories, even though it didn't really end up how I would have liked it.
Yeah, what a in many ways, truly for all of you, and especially him, I suppose. What a wonderful, innocent time. And then the time that we're growing up, life was simple, right? I mean, it was just different. I'll say better, better.
I think so. Although we had our moments there. We had our Vietnam experience there, and we had some riots and stuff like that. It's kind of all cyclical. It's just that now it's really nuts.
1980 solo hit "Only a Lonely Heart Sees." Tell me about that.
Well, the band broke up, and I didn't feel like stopping, man. I felt like continuing to go, so I went over to Epic Records, and I had a pretty nice hit with that. I like that "Only a Lonely Heart Sees." I really, I just keep recording. I just did an album, which came out during the pandemic because, again, we have computers now. So I did a new album. I've done quite a few albums. I did one called, the interesting thing is, I tell you, during the pandemic, I said, let's do this album. I said to my guitar player, who's also like a producer, he's got a little studio in his house. We can do this, quiet. We won't tell anybody we're leaving the house. I said, let's do this. Let's do an album where we do 5 old songs that influenced us, re-record them, like a Jackie Wilson, man, and a Benny King, and let's write 5 new songs that show that influence. So I decided I'm going to name it Then and Now. And all of a sudden, those guys over there in England, the Beatles, they decide they're going to put out Now and Then. So I said, hey, I was first.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, come on.
So COVID happens. You're just getting started on this project. Let me guess. Did you swim a lot?
Yeah, I did because I really try to keep in shape, and there's quite an experience that our generation's had here, and hopefully we've survived it and we're on to never have that happen again. That was pretty rough. Tell me about your book. Well, excuse me, let me sneeze over here. Oh, yeah.
By all means, go ahead.
We just had a recent trip to New England, boy, and it kind of kicked me around.
You know what? And it was I had a prior commitment. I know exactly where you were. I'm familiar with the venue. It is in Lynn. Yeah. I want to say Lynn Memorial Auditorium, I believe.
Well, no, we were in Beverly this trip. Yeah, we were in Beverly, which is close to Lynn, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you know the New England weather, so there's where your cold came from.
Oh man, no, it was so cold up there. I couldn't believe it. But also, another story. Sometimes we get to work in places that are really not the best environment for, how should I say, older people. Oh my God, we froze up there. It's funny when they redo a theater. They redo the audience is beautiful, but the dressing rooms are still like they were in 1920, They don't fix those. Nobody knows that. Go back, take a look.
Yeah, no, I've been in some of them, and that and the food can be just, come on.
I know.
Excuse me, 2008. I've heard this name twice in the last week. Did an interview, last week with Mark Farner from Grand Funk, and he shares his love for Steve Cropper as well. So that you did a 2008 album with Steve Cropper, yes?
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. I've known Steve for many years from Atlantic family. The Atlantic Record family. He was part of the Stax family. When you move to Nashville, which I did. The first thing you do is make writing arrangements, with other people. And so, we decided, let's write some music. And the fellow that was doing it with us, his name was John Tiven. He says, why don't we go after a record deal? Farthest thing from our mind. We were just writing, for other people. And so sure enough, we got a deal with the Concord, Stax. And that was good. That was fun. We had a good time with that. The only thing is that he was so busy at the time, and he was doing his thing, with Booker T and with those guys there from Saturday Night Live, Blues Brothers, that we couldn't really, sponsor it with a tour, But, he's still a local here, and so am I. So we're still kicking.
Hey, you're in, what was it, 2014, maybe 2015? You're with Billy Joel, Madison Square Garden. Was that your first time playing there? Madison Square? No? Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry.
We played in the old one, and we played in the new one. And yeah, Billy, like as I say, I've known him for many years. And when I'm in New York and he's doing his, marathon shows, sometimes he invites me over there to sing, which is really fun because, it's amazing what he does to fill that place. It's just amazing.
Speaking of amazing, you are. I don't know what. Do you have a mantle in your house? Because if you do, it has got to be full of awards. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we'll get to Stevie Van Zandt in a moment. Musicians Hall of Fame, Grammy Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Vocal Group Hall of Fame, Hit Parade Hall of Fame. Well, this makes perfect sense. The Hammond Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one too.
And then do you happen to remember? Well, that's a dumb question. What do you remember about Stevie Van Zandt's speech that night? Do you remember?
Oh, well, that's the Musicians Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, I remember that he later told us, first of all, he had another 45 minutes that he cut off because he had prepared for that quite a bit. I mean, he was ready for that. He was also very instrumental in helping us get into the Hall of Fame because the procedure to get into the Hall of Fames, you have to be nominated. And if you're not nominated, obviously you can't get in. So that I remember. And the fact that I don't know if people realize, but that's how he got his part in The Sopranos.
Interesting.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. The gentleman who did The Sopranos saw him, contacted him after that speech, and said, "I want you to try out." Actually, they wanted to give him one of the lead roles, and he ended up, doing very well there. But yeah, that's how he got that. So it's good because, that's really the way it should be. People help each other, and they both benefit. I think that's wonderful.
You look at that speech. You say he had prepared for it. I mean, maybe that's where his acting skills and his. Anyway, to watch him, he looks like he goes on, but he looks like he's just shooting from the hip. You know what I mean? Not a lot of notes, no teleprompters. He's just speaking from the heart. And one of the things he said that I agree with is, what the hell took so long?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people like that. I mean, there's a list of people, like Chubby Checker, for example. Chubby Checker's not in the Hall of Fame? Come on.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. It's insane. And there's a lot of people like that. But there's a lot of reasons for that. And it has to do with the nominating committee. And it also has to do with politics, like everything else.
I was just going to say, I feel like it's got to be political. And that's too bad.
That's life. That's the way they all are. I mean, regardless of, the image that goes out to other people, that's the way they all are. We have to just deal with it. I mean, politics runs our planet here right now.
And it's, I think you and I share similar feelings on how music, going back to labels, and just how big corporations have ruined it.
Well, when that started, that was Woodstock. Woodstock did that.
Yeah.
Because what happened, basically, I mean, if you think about it, all of a sudden, the corporate structure said, wow, that's pretty impressive. That baby boomer generation, we could exploit that. That's exactly what happened.
So Eugene, touring, taking people to their happy place.
Yep.
It's got to be that personal one-on-one, and especially you do cruises, right? You do the
yes,
Flower Power, maybe, I guess.
Flower Power, yeah. Which is really good, yeah.
That's got to be so intimate, so personal, and rewarding than more so than 100,000 people streaming your songs, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing like it because especially you're locked up on this boat with, a lot of crazy people who love music, it's really fun. I mean, that's an experience that I wish more people could have because they sell out so far in advance. It's almost impossible to get on there, But the company that we work for there, they do a lot of cruises. They do a lot of different themes. Like, for example, they do a romance cruise. They do a R&B cruise. They do a malt shop cruise, which is 50s to 60s. And they go almost all season. They go all year. And I tell you, the people really support it, which is a great sign because it means that with all the streaming and all the stuff we got going on, rock and roll is here to stay.
Yeah. So you're living in Nashville. I assume that agrees with you.
Yep.
You've been there a while, right? A long time, maybe.
Yeah, I got here in the late 80s and raised a family here, and it's a great place for musicians.
You've got 5 kids, is that right?
Yep.
Any of them happen to be named Hammond or Leslie? Probably not, I'm guessing.
Yeah. No, not really. I have mostly girls,
Oh, so, do you? All right.
Yeah. So you can't name it. You got to be careful what you name them,
He'll never forgive you. Listen, I am eternally grateful, truly, that you've chosen to spend some time with us. How will people follow? How do they get your book? What are you most active on social? What's your website? Where do they? I mean, by the way, this interview will eventually end up on YouTube in the next day or two, and I will have all those links. But for the people listening, what do you recommend?
Well, we use Felix Cavaliere music.com, as our home base. It's really interesting how many years ago I had a fan set me up on the internet, and then she stole my name, FelixCavaliere.com. Yeah, oh yeah. There's some great people out there. Yeah, they sold it to somebody else.
No.
So I don't. That's okay. Life goes on. But so it's FelixCavalieremusic.com. And I think that if you go on there, you probably get all the latest tour information and all that. But we do a lot of things like this, which really help us out a lot. I appreciate you taking the time. And we get to meet a lot of people, and I hope I run into you on the road one of these days.
Oh, trust me, I will hunt you down and shake your hand, and I want to take a photo with you.